Welcome to our report on the ranking of the 15 most powerful armed forces in the world. We will now present these armed forces in descending order, starting with the weakest and ending with the most powerful. 15th, Ukraine. The country ranks 15th in our ranking. Ukraine has a defense budget of $30 billion and an active personnel of 200,000 and a reserve personnel of 250,000. Its land forces have 890 tanks and 37,000 armored vehicles. The Ukrainian air forces have 69 fighter jets, 26 transport planes, and 113 helicopters. Its naval fleet includes 1 frigate. 14th, Egypt. Egypt occupies the 14th position with a defense budget of $4.357 billion. It has an active personnel of 440,000 and a reserve personnel of 480,000. Its land forces have 664 tanks and 596 armored vehicles. The Egyptian air forces have 245 fighter jets, 59 transport planes, and 325 helicopters. Its naval fleet includes 13 frigates and 8 submarines. 13th, Indonesia. Indonesia ranks 13th with a defense budget of $8.8 billion. It has an active personnel of 400,000 and a reserve personnel of 400,000. Its land forces have 314 tanks and 12,008 armored vehicles. The Indonesian air forces have 41 fighter jets, 67 transport planes, and 176 helicopters. Its naval fleet includes 10 frigates and 4 submarines. 12th, Brazil. Brazil occupies the 12th position with a defense budget of $18.785 billion. It has an active personnel of 360,000 and a reserve personnel of 1,340,000. Its land forces have 466 tanks and 41,516 armored vehicles. The Brazilian air forces have 42 fighter jets, 125 transport planes, and 171 helicopters. Its naval fleet includes 6 frigates and 7 submarines. 11th, Turkey. Turkey ranks 11th with a defense budget of $25.2 billion. It has an active personnel of 425,000 and a reserve personnel of 200,000. Its land forces have 2,229 tanks and 112,476 armored vehicles. The Turkish air forces have 205 fighter jets, 83 transport planes, and 478 helicopters. Its naval fleet includes 16 frigates and 12 submarines. 10th, Italy. Italy holds the 10th position with a defense budget of $37 billion. The country has an active personnel of 170,000 and a reserve personnel of 20,000. Its land forces are equipped with 197 tanks and 68,508 armored vehicles. The Italian air forces have 92 fighter jets, 32 transport planes, and 404 helicopters. As for its naval fleet, Italy has 4 destroyers, 13 frigates, and 8 submarines. 9th, France. France ranks 9th with a defense budget of $45.943 billion. It has an active personnel of 205,000 and a reserve personnel of 35,000. Its land forces have 222 tanks and 72,676 armored vehicles. The French air forces have 226 fighter jets, 114 transport planes, and 438 helicopters. Its naval fleet includes 10 destroyers, 11 frigates, and 9 submarines. 8th, Japan. Japan holds the 8th position with a defense budget of $39.66 billion. It has an active personnel of 240,000 and a reserve personnel of 55,000. Its land forces are equipped with 1,004 tanks and 111,180 armored vehicles. The Japanese air forces have 217 fighter jets, 58 transport planes, and 566 helicopters. As for its naval fleet, Japan has 36 destroyers, 4 frigates, and 21 submarines. 7th, Pakistan. Pakistan ranks 7th with a defense budget of $7.5 billion. The country has an active personnel of 654,000 and a reserve personnel of 550,000. Its land forces are equipped with 3,742 tanks and 77,771 armored vehicles. The Pakistani Air Forces have 363 fighter jets, 59 transport planes, and 322 helicopters. As for its naval fleet, Pakistan has 2 destroyers, 6 frigates, and 9 submarines. 6th, South Korea. South Korea holds the 6th position with a defense budget of $42.1 billion. The country has an active personnel of 555,000 and a reserve personnel of 500,000. Its land forces are equipped with 2,331 tanks and 133,738 armored vehicles. The South Korean Air Forces have 402 fighter jets, 41 transport planes, and 739 helicopters. As for its naval fleet, South Korea has 13 destroyers, 18 frigates, and 22 submarines. 5th, United Kingdom. The United Kingdom ranks 5th with a defense budget of $50.235 billion. The country has an active personnel of 194,000 and a reserve personnel of 37,000. Its land forces are equipped with 227 tanks and 73,296 armored vehicles. The British Air Forces have 119 fighter jets, 42 transport planes, and 233 helicopters. As for its naval fleet, the United Kingdom has 6 destroyers, 12 frigates, and 10 submarines. 4th, India. India holds the 4th position with a defense budget of $54.2 billion. The country has an active personnel of 1,450,000 and a reserve personnel of 1,155,000. Its land forces are equipped with 4,614 tanks and 100,882 armored vehicles. The Indian Air Forces have 577 fighter jets, 254 transport planes, and 807 helicopters. As for its naval fleet, India has 11 destroyers, 12 frigates, and 18 submarines. 3rd, China. China ranks 3rd with a defense budget of $230 billion. The country has an active personnel of 2 million and a reserve personnel of 510,000. Its land forces are equipped with 4,950 tanks and 174,300 armored vehicles. The Chinese Air Forces have 1,199 fighter jets, 288 transport planes, and 913 helicopters. As for its naval fleet, China has 50 destroyers, 43 frigates, and 78 submarines. 2nd, Russia. Russia holds the 2nd position with a defense budget of $82.6 billion. The country has an active personnel of 830,900 and a reserve personnel of 250,000. Its land forces are equipped with 12,566 tanks and 151,641 armored vehicles. The Russian Air Forces have 773 fighter jets, 444 transport planes, and 1,531 helicopters. As for its naval fleet, Russia has 15 destroyers, 11 frigates, and 70 submarines. 1st, United States. And finally, at the top of the ranking, we find the United States with a colossal defense budget of $761.681 billion. The country has an active personnel of 1,390,000 and a reserve personnel of 442,000. Its land forces are equipped with 5,500 tanks and 303,553 armored vehicles. The U.S. Air Forces have 1,914 fighter jets, 945 transport planes, and 5,436 helicopters. As for its naval fleet, the United States has 11 aircraft carriers, 92 destroyers, 20 frigates, and 72 submarines. This concludes our ranking of the 15 most powerful armed forces in the world. It is important to note that this ranking is based on several criteria such as defense budget, active and reserve personnel numbers, land, air, and naval equipment, as well as other factors that determine a country's overall military power.